First off, I want to mention the work of another Russian that has been disparaged in the U.S., and that's a gentleman named Anatoly Fomenko. Uh, he's a professor at Moscow State University, head of the mathematics department, but he has been looking at alternative history and has come up with something called new chronology. Now, it's disparaged heavily by Wikipedia, which means it's got to be right, in my view, but that's a whole separate topic. But he has proven scientifically that our chronology is fake. And it seems to have been changed about 600 years ago at the Council of Trent. There was I believe, Jesuit, priest named Joseph Scaliger, who created our current chronology. It was subject to great dispute, even in its time, and people like Isaac Newton have contested it all the way up to the present day. But essentially, what Fomenko did was he had read some research about the eclipses, lunar and solar eclipses involved. Another researcher had found that there was this anomalous period of time that started about 1000 AD. And so he went back. He knew that another Russian before him had changed that, had another theory. He did the calculations based on this alternative view, and it fit perfectly. So that's how he got started 50 years ago. And he has determined that almost all of the information that we take for granted as being works of Plato, for example. There are no official original works of Plato. Eusebius and some of the other great historians, none of their information exists. And so what it looks like is that history was literally rewritten about 500 years ago, and that was done more or less at the time that the Romanov dynasty came into power in Russia, in Moscow. And so you just start to put all these pieces together and you realize that history isn't real. The Fibonacci sequence, which is crucial to understanding the golden ratio. Fibonacci didn't invent that. Plato didn't invent the Platonic solids. All of this stuff goes back to ancient India. But was India really any more ancient than Jesus? I don't know. But all of these chronologies can't be trusted. And that's the point. But my research, what I've really focused on, is finding this architecture in Buddhist temples, Hindu temples, pagodas, Gothic cathedrals, neo-Gothic cathedrals, obelisks, castles, DNA, current technology, all of our aircraft, supersonic airplanes, hypersonic missiles, even Native American arrowheads from bows and arrows. It all has this geometry, and engineers aren't taught sacred geometry in engineering school. Yet it's the geometry that cuts down on the Dragon, our jet aircraft. And yet they don't learn it that way. They have to just go in trial and error and figure it out with wind tunnels. So why is this information being withheld when it's obvious that it was known for thousands of years? And why did it disappear 100 years ago? About 100 years ago, this geometry was the common geometry for church steeples, as you were mentioning, Greg. And so why has that disappeared? Why is it no longer used? Why is it that no church steeple manufacturer in the United States makes this geometry anymore when it was the predominant angle 100 years ago? All questions that have to be answered. And the only way you can do that, in my view, is to say something seriously wrong with our history. But every one of these technologies seems to use this 76.345 degree angle to create free energy.
Wow.